Decentralize or die. Those seem like two very extreme positions on a spectrum. My question that I put out to you guys here today, that many of us are probably wondering, is, does science actually need saving? And is blockchain a technology that is going to facilitate that? As a former researcher, academic, 60+ publications, I've been through that journey that Ricardo explained earlier today. I've struggled with funding, I've struggled with making sure that PhDs had their success. And I can tell you that this scientific community as we know it is losing talent on a daily basis. So decentralize or die, that huge spectrum holds a world of opportunity in between those two positions. We know a few things already, right? We know that the market is highly monopolized. There are a few large players that are active. At the same time, we have skyrocketing numbers of scientific publications. That's a nice use case if you're sitting in the right chair. But sometimes, you're the research scientist, and actually it's your work that supports that skyrocketing publication. We're the ones that are doing the heavy lifting. And when you couple that with the current incentives that are in the scientific community today, how we get promotions, that leads to burnout. The publication culture is something that we as scientists have created. And if we don't look up, it will continue to go the way that it is heading. And that brings us to the question, decentralize or die. If we keep going in one direction, we may not like where we end. We've seen and heard about a few examples today about, proper incentives versus, poor behavior among scientists to inflate their PhD or inflate their metric scores. This is killing our innovation. We are preoccupied with the wrong things. How many people in the room here are business developers or VCs or have pitched their own company at one point? Right. So you'll recognize the shapes of these graphs. So if I was to come to you and say, hey, I've got this new solution for back pain, or I have a new value proposition for electric batteries, or maybe I have that special pill for longevity, and I said that these were revenue, this was the revenue prediction, you would be like, yeah, that looks about right. It's got that hockey puck or hockey stick shape. But these are not revenue projections. They're actually articles published in the last time frame, 40 years or so. While they are not meant to be revenue predictions, they are actually, just not for you and me. The revenue for some of the major academic publishing houses, every bar on that graph represents the number of scientific articles that have been published. And those scientific articles have an associated article processing charge. And that is the revenue graph. So we're looking at the industry as a whole is about 28 billion. To put that in perspective, Netflix is around the same, operates in the same landscape. Profit margins, quite lean for these academic publishers, one of the highest profit margins in most businesses, 38%. That's the same as Apple. It's also very similar to Google. So if you want to know where it's coming from, there was a paper published in Archive this year that went in and looked at the last 5 years how much money was being spent by the scientific community on article processing charges alone. It's $8.5 billion. And we're fighting over like fractions of that amount for research grants. So how can we take that 8.5 and funnel it back into the scientific community? And I think that is part of why DeSci exists today. we recognize that there's not only a financial opportunity, but there's a lot of other things that can be gained in the process. The only problem is that the publishers have no incentive to change. Why should they? You saw the graphs. They look pretty good. Right now, we have two standard business models in academia. We're shifting from one to the other. The first one is known as the subscription-based model. It's the one that we've been liking for the last 20, 30 years. And now there's this huge push to go to gold open access. The only difference is where the university pays. So the university pays nothing to get in, but something to get access. On the flip side, which is supposed to be the progressive side, now we're paying to get in and the access is free. But we're still paying. And we're paying quite a bit. So these are some metrics taken from the last few years of some of the major publishing houses for open access gold publishing standards. They're not going down, they're only getting higher. This problem or issue was brought forward, and you can read it for yourself, is published in The Economist over a decade ago. And one of the major stakeholders, Elsevier, was approached by The Economist, and they were asked, why do you charge so much in article processing fees? And the response, although not untrue, it's the average industry price. Now, if those that are interested in economics, you'll know that over time, market prices tend to normalize, or they tend to normalize to the value that you get. What we're paying for nowadays is not what we get as scientists, not the value of the service. We're paying for prestige. And that's something that all of us need to look at. Another faucet that's brewing, so there are signs like little spot fires all over in the scientific community. One of them is that the number of articles being published is skyrocketing. So we saw the independent graphs for niche silos. Now we have an issue where we have more articles coming out than we are developing the number of individuals capable of peer reviewing them properly. So we're actually having a smaller pool of individuals capable of performing a peer review. So what happens to the scientific output when it's not vetted properly? Looking at prestige, another avenue where we see some signals in the scientific community, we have this nice circle, this association where we feel or believe that top journals are the ones that produce and publish better research. And if you publish better research, then by default, that can facilitate funding because it stamps you as a researcher, which then feeds into the idea that you get to produce more research, and therefore you have more opportunity to publish in higher and prestigious journals. If you're not part of that circle already, it's really, really hard to break in. It's a very exclusive circle. And again, there is no incentive for it to change, not if you're in the circle. So we need to ask ourselves, who is really doing the heavy lifting here? Scientists are applying for funding, they're doing the research, they're writing up, they're getting all the insights. Some who are taking those insights and turning them into commercial opportunities. We are the ones that make the lean business models of academic publishing possible. It's only by us, and it's only by raising awareness, which is why coming to a space like DSci or DSci Soul is so important. There are more fires in the scientific community. If anyone is following Retraction Watch, they publish newsworthy articles pretty much on a daily basis. We have mass resignations of editors leaving prestigious journals because of, for raising article processing charges without giving a good reason. We have the peer review, which is, as you explained, Ricardo, it's hard to find people that are qualified to do a peer review. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we see a lot of fraudulent actions. Activities that I didn't even know were possible. How people are inflating their citation metrics and doing fabrication of data, plagiarism, all of that. Why do we do that? We're scientists. Why? Why are we being pushed to such an extreme that we would think that that is our only source of achievement? Research Hub has shown that it is possible to decrease the time to receive a peer review. Some people may argue in the scientific community that if you get a peer review too quickly, maybe it's not rigor. Maybe it's not rigorousness, there isn't enough rigor. Some would argue that getting a peer review fast can change the life of your PhD student. So there are two things to balance here. While we can increase or decrease the time for peer review, we also have a lot of other issues on the table. And this is where building on-chain can introduce and tackle some of these prior challenges. So, for example, instead of waiting for the incentives to change, we just need to build them in. And this is what we can do on blockchain. At NobleBlocks, we're aiming to build in efficiency. So building in efficiency in terms of making it really easy to submit an article, find peer reviewers, reward peer reviewers, make the review process open and transparent. That open and transparency allows society, especially marketing and marketing teams that work for larger companies, to see how the science has been vetted, and that actually incites adoption. Community-centric. If you go and look at articles today, you can go to PubMed or any other scientific database, and if you pull up an article, you cannot see any comments associated with that article. I had a PhD student that had a replication bias. It cost him an entire year of his PhD because nobody made any comments about how it was or wasn't working. So a community-centric platform alongside a publication process could facilitate that. It could save us time, and maybe even for once, we'll start to acknowledge non-significant data or non-significant findings. Fair recognition and contributions. This is something that is easily handled by blockchain technologies, where you can reward and incentivize the community for contributing. So that goes from peer review to editorial processes, to maybe recruiting, other types of peer reviewers. It also extends into industry and industry partners as well. So my name is Shelley Boudreau. I'm here today. I'm very open to speak to all of you. I really hope that you will follow us at NobleBlocks, give us some of your attention, and just remember, we are all in the same boat. And so everybody here, as long as we stick together, then we're going to go places. Thank you for your attention.